Welcome to the Inspiration North podcasts, inspiring stories from inspirational people and how they found their passion, their true north. I'm James Eves.
And I'm Michelle Minikin, and this is the Inspiration North podcast.
Today's episode, Sometimes You've Got to Take the Leap, with Claire Standen. We talk about how there's no wrong path, you have to harness the rebel, and everyone has personal responsibility for rising themselves up.
Claire is a coach specialising in helping women recover from emotional abuse. Using neuro-linguistic programming and her own particular brand of inspirational empowerment through her brand Rising Strong. Her work with clients focuses on bringing out the potential that she believes we all have within us to take us way beyond what we may perceive as possible, particularly if we have faced challenging circumstances or disempowering relationship dynamics. Claire's own journey has proven that it is possible to create a happier future despite, or perhaps, using energy derived from the adversities. We are continuing our road trip in Scotland. So Claire, do you want to talk to us about your journey to where you started and how you got here?
Okay, yeah. So I'm a coach now, which still feels weird to say because that's probably been 4 months that I've been officially self-employed, doing coaching and only coaching. Before that, I have had a career path that I think is best encapsulated with the no wrong path hashtag signs that people were holding up a wee while ago, because I went from forestry.
Okay.
A degree in forestry, which is what brought me originally.
Wow, that's a conversation starter. You know? What did you do? I did a degree in forestry. What?
Yeah.
Is that possible? Does that exist?
It sure
really.
does in Scotland.
Proof.
This is where how you got Scotland.
So that's how I got to Scotland. That's how I went from the East Midlands, from Leicester, to Edinburgh University to do a forestry degree. And then I joined the Forestry Commission. So the government body that deals with forests. And I worked there for a number of years.
Wow.
Until I didn't anymore.
Okay.
And I retrained as a veterinary nurse.
As you do.
Yeah. This is what...
That's amazing though. So how did you choose forestry because it's like, I have a passion for nature or power tools or
trees?
Both?
The outdoors, I think you could sum it up as, and a bit of an explanation as to why I'm not there anymore. Also, something practical. Mm-hmm. You know, there are not too many careers that have that really practical element. Well, there are, but not with a degree. Mm-hmm. And I think what I then figured out was with a degree, the forestry wasn't going to be a practical career either. Okay. So I ended up behind a desk. And
so is that more like forestry management or looking at zoning and planning?
Yeah.
And that side of
I was
things?
in grants and licenses. So
okay.
So it was really giving mostly private landowners money to
not cut their trees down,
manage their forests in an appropriate fashion. And I kind of figured out I could actually have been putting in numbers about absolutely anything, because that's really what I was doing, was putting in numbers into computers, and it became frustrating for me as a result. And I think what I know now that I didn't know then was that probably there were actually things I could have done in that arena that really would have suited me and my personality. But being young, I quit and I went on to do something that really is very practical, veterinary nursing. And there I think I realised that practicality often comes with the kind of, you know, blue collar thing of reaching a kind of earnings limit and not going beyond that, and there not being really very much career progression. So that's where I got to with that, which is how that and various huge other things have led me down a route that's coaching. So I retrained again. And I think maybe for our generation, I'm 35 now, that's not such an unusual thing.
No.
You know, sticking in one job forever is not really how we think of things, even if we don't consciously realise that's not how we're thinking of things.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's we've moved from your job for life mentality of our parents, perhaps era, where now well, I forget what the figure was I saw last time. Was it 12 or was it an average of 12 jobs in a career for the newer generations as a minimum?
12 careers, I think.
12 careers, it could be, yeah.
Job switches. So
right,
it's amazing the sort of future of work, what that looks like, because you know, with the fourth industrial revolution, there's loads of different changes. There's jobs that aren't going to be around anymore, and there's jobs that, you know, social media manager wasn't a job that we had an option of becoming when we were little.
Yes.
So it's this just the rate of change, and I think people who are adaptable and can have, you know, they can go, oh, wow, these are my strengths, this is where I'm going to move to. They'll be the people that can cope and adapt, I suppose. And that's what you've done.
Absolutely. And I think there is quite a big thing about it's almost not listening to the generation before, which still believes that there's a way that things need to be done, and that's the way you're going to have to do it.
Yes.
And that does, you know, bring me to a point I guess I really wanted to talk to you guys about today, which is anxiety and business, right? Building a business through some very natural feelings. So I don't know if you'll have put this in the intro to me, but I'm a single mum, recently divorced, very recently divorced, separated about nearly 2 years ago. And so building a business has felt like a huge thing to me. I know it feels like a huge thing to most people, but really, you know, quitting a job where I was guaranteed an income to go on to build something that really just exists in my head, and changing again, you know, coming from a background, a family that have had jobs, not businesses. That's a pretty huge mindset shift, really. It certainly has been for me.
Is that something that was always there? You've not been afraid to retrain, to try something different. Then what were the sort of thoughts going through your head at that time, or the feedback I suppose you might get from people in your close circle, friends, family?
Yeah. The first thing that pops up for me when you say is that something that's always been there. When I was about 7 or 8, we were on a family holiday, and I've always loved buttons. I don't know, it's a thing. And I made this necklace out of buttons. I think I made a whole jewellery range, frankly, but this necklace out of buttons. And I went into this kind of, you know, clothes shop with my mum, and the women in the shop were like, look at that amazing necklace, you know. And I think something in me sparked at that point that thought, I actually probably have something creative to bring to the world. But it's taken just, you know, a few years for something to come. And obviously my business is not jewellery. It's something working really in a creative way with people's minds and my own mind. But there's definitely always been a rebellious streak in me that I think I'm just learning to harness for the good, for you know, productive sources.
Could we have rebelliousness as a quality of a person, in that it's a change in direction like that in life, where you're retraining, I'm getting divorced, I'm doing everything you're not supposed to do from society, from the previous generation, which I presume leads to feedback, which is like, you are bonkers, Claire, no, you can't do this. You're going to do what? You've done a degree in this, and then you're going to go into veterinary care. And
of course, the way that our minds work, you also have that internal voice that's telling you that, you know, this is mad. What am I doing? Beating yourself up about not following through on things that you said you'd do, or, you know. So yeah, it's a tide of things you have to work through.
Can you harness the rebel? That one sounds like a great title.
Yeah. Oh, it does, doesn't it?
Does the rebel, because a rebellious side is like, well, do you know what? Thank you for your feedback, but I'm not going to swear, but because Michelle will edit it out. But I'm going to show you differently. I hear you. I know what you're saying. I get where it's coming from. But the rebel in me is like throwing up 2 fingers.
Well, that's interesting.
It's like, I'm going to prove you a lot wrong.
Yeah, harnessing the rebel is a thing. I really think it is. Trying to take constructive feedback, but not taking on other people's limitations about what they believe is possible. And just occasionally, I really have to bring it back to basics for myself. One of the things that I do, my logo is this fabulous phoenix that a friend drew, and it's kind of it looks like a tattoo, really, rising from the flames, as phoenixes tend to do. And sometimes when people bring those limiting things to me, or in a less than kind way, which does happen when you start to sort of stem the tide and turn the tide, play bigger,
attract criticism,
absolutely,
fun stuff.
And I do, I avoid swearing, but in my mind I think, fan my flames, fan my flames, I'm rising.
That's great.
And that's how I've kind of reframed that for myself, so that, because you're always going to come up against opposition, and I haven't yet come up against real controversy, but I have some messages to bring to the world that I think probably will be difficult for people to stomach sometimes, about your personal responsibility for rising yourself up. How staying in a victim mentality is really not going to get you where you want to go. Things that I have actually held back from saying, although they've been hugely beneficial for me, and I think it is a conversation that needs to happen, especially around the emotional abuse arena, because if you continue to give your power to somebody that you've left, that you've decided this relationship is not going forwards, then you are staying in a sort of victim place that means you're not going to go beyond and to the places that, frankly, I think everybody has the potential to go, if they can frame it in a way that's empowering for them.
No, you come across the drama triangle.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I recognise myself in all.
So three. I haven't. So for anyone else who hasn't, could you explain that a little bit, please?
Yeah, so the drama triangle has 3 elements, as you might expect. So you have the victim, the perpetrator, and a saviour. So it doesn't actually, strangely enough, have to have 3 people in it. But this is something I work with quite a lot with clients, because it's an element of being really honest with yourself about where you might be turning up as a victim. And there will be other relationships in your life where you're turning up as a perpetrator. It's, of course, all about the perspectives of everybody involved. And then there are those people who turn up as a saviour in relationships. And for them, that looks like really only being kind. But as soon as you're a saviour, somebody else is a victim.
And then you can turn very quickly into the perpetrator.
Absolutely, switched. Yeah, one, flipped across from one to the other. So the opposite of that is the empowerment triangle, which is what I love to work with. And so in the empowerment triangle, there is a coach, a challenger, and a creator. So the creator is the opposite of victim. And as a powerful creator in our own lives, what an empowering frame to work with, where you get to choose what you're creating in your mind, in your external environment. So I find that even just drawing people's attention to that existing, anywhere, as far as I'm concerned, in any relationship that a drama triangle turns up, some perspective needs to be gained.
No, definitely. And you've come across choice theory, I think.
Yes. Only recently, actually. Yeah.
So we had the parent behaviour coach on.
I saw.
So have you listened to that one? Yeah. So that she is very much choice theory.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's fascinating. It's like you choose how to react to everything.
Absolutely.
And it's like, but you can't make me feel sad anymore. It's sad. It's like,
I know. I wrote a post about that the other day, the make me feel frame of thinking about things. It's absolutely inherent in everything we say in the British culture. They made me feel so angry. Well, really, are you gonna hand your power over for what happens internally to somebody? It's the old analogy of what's in your cup. If somebody bumps into you. You know, if it's boiling hot coffee, that's what gets spilt. If it's water, that's what gets spilled. As far as I'm concerned, what somebody makes you feel is only a function of what you have within you anyway. And I mean, I'm not saying this is easy.
No.
And I've got, you know, 2 kids, 5 and 2. So there's many times during the day when I think, gosh, this child is making me so...
Practice what you preach, Claire.
I know.
So,
and then
no,
I pull
can't
it
say
back.
that.
And you know, compassion as a coach, one of the huge pieces of work you teach people on a day-to-day basis is just to have compassion for yourself, because we think we need to be perfect all day long. And it's still huge work within me as well to realise that, you know, if I do lose my rag with the kids, I can step back. It's a learning experience for us all to say, I am a human. I lost my cool. I'm sorry. And that is not how I would like to be behaving here in this moment. But they lose their rag too. And when they see another, you know, human, an adult, their mum, somebody I hope they look up to, being self-aware enough to say, that happened and I'm not happy with it, but I'm a human and I'm working on it and I still love you.
It's weird, isn't it? It's like, I don't think we ever had those parents, those conversations with our parents as well.
I don't think so.
No, I don't remember my parents saying,
no,
sorry for losing my you-know-what.
Uh-huh.
Why would they say that? It's like, just do what we're told, go to your bedroom.
Yes, yeah.
No supper.
Yeah, the power. I'm reading a really great book called The Conscious Parent, and it's that, you know, I think most of us as a generation were raised with the power model of, you know, I'm an adult, so you do what I say.
Yeah.
And it raises this I'm not okay thing within
like
you.
People pleasing as well.
Absolutely. And still getting that message from the generation above. I see it happening all the time, that you need, that it really is imperative that you people please. It really is very important. And I've always had this frame around it that if I'm trying to please other people all the time, my success rate's going to be pretty low because it's just my best guess at what might please somebody else. Whereas the selfish way, and I really have a trouble with the word selfish, is to think what pleases me. And really, we only get this one bash at life. I'm not okay with the success rate being pretty low at pleasing others. I'm much more okay with finding out what pleases me and turning up in the world as a happy, contented person who fulfills their own needs. You know, I think of it actually quite a lot like a little ecosystem. I guess it's my forestry background, ecology.
Still handy.
Yeah, it's still handy. There's things you can learn from everything. I think of myself as a little ecosystem, and I'm currently single. And it's been a huge thing for me to think, well, who do I expect to fulfill my needs? Who's that going to be? It's only ever going to be me, even when I am in a relationship. But I think when I look to other relationships that I see out there in the world, it is everybody thinking that their partner owes them something, that, you know, that their deep inner insecurities need to be massaged by this other person out in the world. And I just think I'm very contemplative about my marriage, how it went, and the fact that I've got divorced. I try not to beat myself up about it, but
it's one divorce, yes, so you're an amateur.
Divorce amateur. Yeah, so
top trumps.
Yeah.
Top trumps divorce.
2 divorces. 3 divorces. Wait, we're not Ross from Friends. 3 divorces.
Oh, my hairdresser says that to me. He's like, next time you need to marry divorce. You can divorce it because you're the divorcer. I'm like, thanks, Chris. So my hairdresser's so supportive.
Yes. Yeah. Does good hair though.
Yeah, he does. It's
fine. Yeah. And you know, if you do allow yourself to go there with doing some work on yourself after a divorce, you know, I actually have a lot of compassion for my ex-partner that I really wouldn't have fostered if I hadn't have done some work, some inner work, a lot of inner work. Frankly, I think when we speak about the journey, for me, the journey is forever and always began way before I was conscious of it. And who knows when and where it will end, but I'm kind of committed to that journey of self-development. It's fascinating.
I think you don't ever end.
No,
it doesn't. It's
no,
continuous
I don't think so.
improvement. And if you're not changing, learning, improving, then you're standing still or going backwards, or you're stuck in that victim. Oh,
absolutely.
I can't do this because of X, and I need to do this before Y, and
yes.
I can't go on YouTube until I've lost weight.
A victim of your circumstances. Absolutely.
Yes, to start. We always laugh that we look back. I cringe so badly. Our early podcast, and we're only on whatever number now.
Yeah.
14.
And it's awful. But your first draft, anything is going to be pretty pants.
Mm-hmm.
Just start, just do, and just improve.
Absolutely. Do you know that was it was actually probably a podcast that got me started on self-development, and it was these two women, I can't remember their names, but they were having a conversation about starting anyway.
Do something.
And then there's that whole kind of progress over perfection thing, which whenever I say it in a public forum really seems to resonate with some people, because like I say, it goes back to that whole thing of thinking you need to be perfect and portray perfect, and I think that hugely gets in the way of connectedness, which is a massive part of well-being. Now that I've opened up in a kind of vulnerable way to the world, I've lost count of the messages I've received from people saying me too, basically. That's thank you for sharing that, and also I haven't told anybody else, but that you get that as a therapist a lot, this is the first time I've ever said this to anybody, and you feel so hugely privileged about that, but also what a relief for that person to offload something that
been carrying around,
feeling like it's something wrong within them.
Shame stuff, isn't it?
It's shame. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So what sort of people then do you think would your message most resonate with? If there's a particular type of client that you coach?
Well, so I'm still building my business. Like I said, 4 months in to really having launched it properly. And the audience that I really want to connect with is newly separated or divorced women. I have worked with men. I really enjoy working with men. And if they want to do the work on themselves, then I would also love to work with men. But all the business stuff says you niche, so that your audience knows who you're talking to. So at the moment, my niche would be women who've left emotionally abusive relationships. And that is said knowing that kind of resonates with the victim mentality, because if you were in an abusive relationship, technically you're thinking of yourself as a victim. But I guess that's just about the message I want to bring is that your mindset is going to take you way beyond anything you've ever experienced before. And the potential for you is limitless, absolutely limitless. I haven't even begun to realize my potential, but some of the facts of my situation blow my mind. Having gone from employed to self-employed is one single thing. Having doubled, and some months, over even the last 3 or 4 months, tripled my salary. That's huge. Being in a place where I can parent from a calm and contented place most of the time, that's absolutely huge. That's life-altering. And the ways that I've done this, I mean, generally we're terrible witnesses to our own processes. So there are some things that I have done that I'm not really aware of, but there are also some very definite conscious things I have done that I can bring to other people as a skill set that I'm so desperate to bring, so that people don't have to live what the world thinks divorce looks like, what the world thinks single parenting looks like. All of that rhetoric that there is around it frustrates me so much. And I want, the tendrils of my work to reach far and wide, so that people can, number one, just see that a smidgen of what's possible, and start to realise it for themselves as well.
Yeah, totally reminds me, we were seeing Grant Cardone last year. And he brought his 2 little children on to stage, Scarlett and Sabrina. There we go. Yeah. And they stood up in front of a room, 200-300 people, and they just said, "My name is Scarlett, and I can do anything." And I'm like, "Wow! Oh, I wish as an adult I knew that."
Yes,
I'm getting there. And me and my little boy, who's 9, we kind of say that between us,
Yeah.
And Oliver gets it wrong all the time. He keeps saying, "I can do everything." It's like, dude, you can't do everything. You can do anything. Everything is the perfection.
Yeah.
Anything's possible.
Anything
the only
is
person
focus your mind.
The only person you're competing with is you. So no, that's just totally.
And the biggest person who gets in your way, no matter who you might try and pin that on, is you.
The person in the mirror.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
So that's someone who's left an emotionally abusive relationship, got divorced. So are these more areas? I mean, you're obviously perhaps still developing the offering, but it sounds like there's a lot of work to do with mindset, which then could lead to opening the eyes to opportunity, creating new revenues, passions, little side ventures.
Absolutely.
So that's along those lines.
I suppose at its very essence, I think when you have been in a relationship with somebody who isn't honouring who you are as a person, and as we spoke about, a lot of people are not really in a deep-seated way okay with who they are as a person. There's work to be done on that. And when you even get in touch with a little bit of that, huge shifts happen for people. And I think that when I see that happen with a client, I mean, there have been people I've worked with who they just absolutely run with it. They take that sliver of empowerment and they just sprint out the starting block, and it's just fabulous to see. I absolutely love it. So yeah, I think there are people who are so ready for that, and yes, I want to bring them an offering that gives them the ability to do what they were probably born to do anyway, just maybe a bit of a catalyst, a spark to do that. I've got huge plans. One thing this year that I want to bring to the world is an online program so that people anywhere can access what I have to offer. And that would probably involve an element of one-to-one coaching within that, like a program that people would join. And in my far distant future, although potentially closer than I could imagine, is like a physical premises that people can come to. And I'm thinking along the lines of, a kind of therapeutic base, really, but also there's something there about business skills for women and the coaching frame of reference. I think in my mind anyway, I think women tend to kind of access like counselling and therapy, and coaching seems like a more masculine thing. But I actually think the potential locked up in women that could be coached out. And it's always a whenever anybody says, "Thank you so much for what you've done for me," I say, I didn't do anything. It was all within you. I have a particular skill set around unlocking some things for people, but I didn't instill anything in you that wasn't already there. We just unlocked it. So yeah, there's something about even women believing that they could start a business, have a business, and then some of the stuff I'm coming up against in terms of a skill set, bringing that to them as well in a very kind of authentic and you hear the term heart-centered way, so you don't think you have to completely divorce yourself from who you are to be a business person. For me, that's really not how it is.
I've had that feedback.
Right.
Michelle, you should get a job because you're too nice to run a business.
Right.
when somebody tells me not to do something, I go the other way.
That's absolutely like, rebellion.
Thank you, fan my flames. I almost did the Great North Run because somebody said I couldn't do it. I was like, I don't want to do it.
I gave up chocolate for a year because somebody said I couldn't do it.
Don't ever tell me I couldn't do that. I'd really be sad. Brilliant. It is. Sorry.
So there's an online program,
yeah,
face-to-face elements, somewhere that sounds quite magical that we can go to in a nice setting as part of your vision for the future.
Yeah.
So if that sounds to be of interest to someone, perhaps they are maybe contemplating leaving a relationship or would like to follow your posts, or what's the best way to kind of follow you or get in touch?
Yeah, sure. People who are contemplating leaving, that's actually a huge client base. I suppose you would think of it in business terms that I hadn't appreciated follow me. But I think they do, frankly, and contact me occasionally to say, you know, you really have given me a lot of useful stuff to work with. So if people want to contact me at the moment, it's mostly email. So I'm Claire, which is CLAIRE @risingstrong.me. And they can also follow me on social media, Facebook @risingstrong.me. I have a new Twitter account now. I think it's risingstrong.me, but Twitter is out with my skill set right now.
Yes, it's one of those ones, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've had to, I left it years ago and I've come back to it, and so Michelle's like, you need to be on Twitter because that's like where everything's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're getting good leads for new podcast people, and it's like, you need to get back on Twitter. But I was like, oh.
I know. It's too much already. It's overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. Too many. So my most active social media would be Instagram, risingstrong.me, and Facebook @risingstrong.me. That's really where I think most people follow me, because that's where I turn up the most.
Yeah. It's probably the most fun as well, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Food pictures. Oh, boobs. Yeah. Food pictures. It's like, I'm not sure how boobs get into my feed.
Yeah.
So random.
And links, because I do link to sort of relevant articles and interesting stuff on Facebook, and
yes, that's the most frustrating thing about Instagram.
You can't do
links.
Yeah, and that whole LinkedIn bio, I don't know what that means, frankly. So
LinkedIn bio,
links in bio.
It means you have to change your email address all the time.
Right.
Your website address in Instagram.
Okay.
Anyway,
see, these are things.
This is not a social media training podcast.
No. You can do that later.
Maybe one for the future.
Yeah.
So that sounds good. That sounds like some good content to follow, lots of good messages to mull over, reflect on, and then maybe decide to take some action. So you're inspiring women to take action and
be braver.
Yeah.
Bravery. Yeah. Yeah. Believe it's possible.
It's a big leap.
Yeah. If I had done a spreadsheet when I didn't contemplate divorce for very long. I acted quite quickly. But if I'd done a spreadsheet, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have left. And that to me is quite a terrifying prospect, that I would still be where I was for not believing. So believe it's possible, number one, the key principle. And you don't know how, and you won't know how. But sometimes you got to take the leap.
Wow. That made me all tingly.
Oof, yes. Sometimes you've got to take the leap.
I think that's the title, James.
That's a good one. I'm going to note that one down. Yeah. Sometimes you've got to take the leap. Yes. Yeah. Otherwise, you won't know what could happen. It's a bit like what you said about starting a business or taking that leap. I often like I can't remember if it's a quote. I'll have to find it, but it's, the time is going to pass anyway. So you might as well have a go at trying something new.
Absolutely.
Taking a leap.
Following your heart.
Yes.
Listening to your gut.
Oh, that's a big coaching point. Yeah.
Cool. So if you had one piece of advice, if you go back in time to 18-year-old Claire, what would that one piece of advice you would give to her?
Oh gosh.
I know.
I literally did this yesterday.
Oh wow, excellent. Good preparing.
I was driving up the country and I from my forestry days, I lived in Dumfries and Galloway for a year, and I was there at pretty much 18. So I went for a walk in the same woods that I walked many times when I was 18, and I had a conversation with myself. So this is so relevant. But do you know the funny thing is, I didn't have advice for 18-year-old me, but 18-year-old me had advice for me. And I think that's quite huge, because sometimes I look at my kids and I think these guys have some huge stuff to teach me, and I need to listen more. So 18-year-old me said to me, you're just not somebody who really worries about stuff, Claire. What's all this worrying about? You seem fine. You've got to 35. Why don't you try out the way you were when you were 18 again and just go with the flow? Enjoy life. It was more of a message of just laughing, enjoying life, joy, than it was any kind of words or anything. But I just looked back and I thought, she's damn right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Thank you ever so much for talking to us today, Claire. It's been amazing. You're totally inspirational. Exactly what we want for the podcast. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Claire. Thanks. Thanks everyone for listening. Check out all the show notes at inspirationnorth.com. Join us again for the next episode, when we'll be chatting to another inspirational person. If you like this, subscribe and tell your friends. If you didn't like this, subscribe anyway and tell everybody.